the personality of Prophet Muhammad?
That's a loaded question. There's a lot to say here.
So I'm here today with today's episode of the RJV Show Podcast with Sayyid Hussain Makke. He's I'm not going to introduce him too much because he's quite well known, and he has a lot of activity on social media. He's currently a student in Lebanon. He's completed his master's, I believe, in SOAS University a couple of years ago, and gets invited all over the world to speak about Islam, self-development, spirituality, and many other topics as well. I want to get straight into what's going on around the world right now. There is a pandemic. Obviously, you're experiencing that in Lebanon because, from my understanding, you're not at Hosea classes as much. You're, I think, doing some stuff online through Hosea. Can you tell me a little bit about how the state of affair in Lebanon generally is, and in the south where you are more, and how you're dealing with the pandemic, you and your family there?
Yeah, sure. Well, me and my wife, we live in Lebanon on our own, pretty much. My wife is originally from Lebanon, but she was raised in America, so her family's there, and my family's in London. So we were close to Iran, obviously, and we took Corona in Lebanon a lot more seriously before the Western countries. So I'd say about 6 weeks ago was when we started our quarantine. So it's been like 6 weeks for us at home. The houses straight away took it very seriously, especially that what had been happening mainly in Qom. So, of course, all our teachers had a lot of their own teachers that were going through it 2 months ago. So they took precautions straight away, especially that for the Hausa, people live in dorms. So on the weekend, everyone goes back to their own villages and comes back to the dorms. And that's just a no-no right now. So
this is before the Lebanese government started to kind of say, lock down, people not go out. You guys are kind of preparing for it.
Yes. But we have not had one day off. Like that's what killed us. So whilst everything was happening, because my teacher is like very anti days off. So whilst everything was happening, he's just like, no days off. So instead of when everything was up in the air, that 1 week, the first week, he just said that, we just have exam week right now. Since you're going to have exams in 2 weeks anyway, we just bring it forward. So it was a bit difficult.
Hardcore teacher, huh?
So yeah, we haven't missed any days. We tried our best to carry on. The seeking knowledge doesn't stop. Even tabligh wise, alhamdulillah, all the brothers online, they're out there propagating, doing their thing. As for me at home, same thing for my wife. She was doing Hawza as well and studying at the uni at AUB. And we've both been home taking classes online. And Lebanon is surprisingly doing very, very, very well. It's one of the countries in the world that has the least amount of cases. And it's because everything is shut down. Like now, absolutely everything is shut down. Even you can't go out on certain days. So depending on what number your car number ends in, your license plate is the day that you can go out on.
Is it the odd and even number kind of?
Yeah, it's odd and even. So if you're odd, you go out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, right? So I'm odd. So for example, you can't go out, it's curfew, you can't go out past 7 p.m. So it's, to be honest, there's no economy to lose because it was in a very, very bad situation before the coronavirus. Yeah. So what's happening in the other countries?
You had strikes before, right? There was
exactly. Yeah. So the even the currency here, it's lost half of its value.
Oh wow!
Since 6 months ago, half of its value.
So things become more expensive, right? So food and
yes, it's really bad, especially leading up to Shahr Ramadan. And usually you'd get help from outside to help people here, but because of what's happening right now, and everyone's already on a tight budget.
Of course,
there's even less help coming from outside to help the poor people here. So unfortunately, that's the downsides. Since there's no economy to lose, they just shut everything down. But it doesn't mean that people aren't suffering. So people continue to suffer. Some people actually don't have enough to eat.
Yeah.
So some people, they get by like day to day. They're taxi drivers, for example. They can't work.
Sure.
So it's very difficult, a very difficult situation. But it's not exempt. Like the rest of the world is going through a very similar scenario right now. I don't think anyone is gonna get through this unscathed,
Yeah, I mean, I think
unfortunately.
some countries, we expect them to not have certain infrastructures to be able to deal with a situation like this, where the economy has ground to a halt. So people who live paycheck to
Yes.
paycheck, as they say in America, or week to
Yeah.
week or whatever, they're gonna find it really hard with. But like say like countries, some countries in the Middle East or Asia or Africa, fine. I suppose stereotypically we can accept that. But then when it comes to a country like in Europe, or a country like America, the richest country in the world, where a lot of people, we're talking about millions of people, are going through the same situation in Lebanon,
Yes.
where their family has to decide: do I either feed my family, or do I pay the rent? Do I feed them, or do I
Mm.
pay the
But you know what, Reza? SubhanAllah. See, I think right now it's not even about that infrastructure anymore, because there are several other countries that are in perhaps a similar economic situation to Lebanon, but are also not doing well. And the difference is, and I'm going to say this, the Shia in Lebanon, in all honesty, are very well organized. So when we have a rule, we all apply that rule. It's very organized, and this is why leadership is so important, because it's not money driven for us. So right now we have, subhanallah, our own hospitals and ambulances and doctors that are there for everyone else in Lebanon. So every denomination in Lebanon, they're serving everyone. They don't serve only the Shia. However, they have been organized and come together from the Shia villages. So they have been organized under Shia leadership. Thousands of doctors and thousands of ambulances and thousands of equipment, and all the different buildings that they have for their own museums and their own camps have been created into hospitals, and they're serving everyone for free, for free. And everyone complies. Whatever it needs, it's very beautiful in that sense. The community feeling that I have sensed around the world, and in Lebanon especially, I've never seen before. But I think that's a huge difference. Like, I don't know if you saw, about 2 weeks ago, we were doing this thing where every night at 8 p.m., everyone would come out on their balconies and everyone would start shouting "Labbaika ya Hussein" to each other. So you're living in that kind of environment,
we
you know?
when you're doing that at 8 o'clock here, we clap and
Yes,
we bash our pants.
yes, yes, yeah. So it's a different cultural
Expression, but it's
expression,
the
but
same.
it means the same thing, that community feeling. So alhamdulillah. But I have to say, like, I'm very grateful to be in a community where people go out on the balconies and say "Labbaika ya Hussein."
So the next point I want to go on to is what is it you do on a daily basis? So you said you continue your studies, right? A
Yeah,
lot of people in
yes,
the UK and around the world, they continue their
yes.
studies online. So either the teacher puts what's it called, the format of technology on, and communicates with the students and try to continue studying. What is it you're doing throughout the day to keep a structure, to keep a kind of sanity?
Yes,
Because we as humans, especially if you want to be productive, you have to have a kind of like structure and
yes.
ritual to do. What is it that you do to try to help you?
I've seen several people post now on social media. Some post a lot of statuses explaining how to make this situation be the most productive situation of their lives, and others post saying, "Don't make this a productivity issue. This is a pandemic. It's not a productivity contest." Because there's a lot of anxiety at the moment, and some people, they might feel let down by that. I would say that everyone is different. Everyone's on different levels, right? So you can't apply the same for everyone. Personally, for me, um, I can't ever imagine myself being bored. I don't know what boredom feels like. I haven't been bored in years. I don't know what that is anymore, because there's always, always, always something to do, so much to do. And my mindset is that I need to get as much done as I can before I die. So as soon as I finish any project that I'm on, I'm like, alhamdulillah, I got that done now before I die, and I need to work on something else before I die, because the battery is dwindling day by day with every breath you take. So that's the way I see things. So I don't think that should offend anyone,
So you're
because
doing
someone might
projects
feel like,
as you're doing your
yeah, yeah, yeah.
studies, and day to day running of
Yeah,
your.
of course. Yeah. Yeah. I think that, see, I'll get to the projects in a minute if you want to know about that. But I think the most important thing for us is, um, our teachers kept the system the same. So this classes start at 7 a.m. Everything's the same. We do them online. If there was any problems online, the teachers, they send you the audio recording by Telegram. So you carry on studying it, even though Usually in class we can ask questions, so it's much easier. Right now, no one asks the teacher a question, so he speaks for 50 minutes.
Is it
God
because they
bless
just
him.
want to quickly get out?
No. There's no one asking questions, so it just carries on. So it ends up being a
Oh, it's not
really
interactive. You basically listening only.
it's supposed to be interactive, but it's not as fluid, is it?
Yeah.
But it's okay. But see, if I was going to go about this as okay, I'm gonna do all nighters every single night because I don't have to be awake at a certain time, and I can just sleep after class. And I'm not gonna lie to you, online studying for me is not the same as being there. But at the same time, that structure, um, sleep, as I say, is king. If I make sure to sleep at a certain time every night and I wake up 4 5 a.m. and I begin my day, and it's the same now. That's how it's always been, and right now it's still the same. And that time is like the best time for me. It's the best time of the day. That 4 5 a.m. until 7 a.m. where you're on your own and you do your own thing, and you work on what you want to work on, those
That's one of the
projects.
most productive
Then
time of the day, isn't it?
it
According to
really is.
Islamic teachings.
You hear it a lot. You hear it. Yes, in the Islamic teachings, that's the time where rizq is given. And they even say, even if you're not going to be awake and praying at this time, like maybe someone wants to do ibadah at this time, but even if you're not, if you're awake at this time, it's better than being asleep. Being asleep is not recommended in between um,
So
dawn and
for our
sunrise.
audience who may not be Muslim or new to Islam, when you say rizq, you mean financial
Provision,
blessings or all kind? Could it be religious
all kinds of
knowledge?
blessings. It's provision. Allah provides.
Okay.
And you can say, Rabbi zidni ilma. Yeah, Allah provides knowledge. Allah provides financial benefits. Allah gives health. Allah gives everything. Dua, of course, has a whole philosophy to it. But there are certain times where dua is most accepted, or it's the best times that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
So that time is one of those best times. So I make sure that time to be awake. I have my classes. I try to get my work done as soon as possible so I get the rest of the day to myself. And what I mean by that is working on my own projects. So now Shahr Ramadan's coming up. So I'll be working on preparing lectures and programs for people, inshallah, to benefit from. And then in the nighttime, I work on a few pieces of writing that maybe it's too early to talk about right now, but inshallah in the future it would be people can benefit from that as well. So that's what every day is like. And of course, you got to train. You have to have some training there.
Yeah.
So I go up to the roof.
Yeah.
Uh, under the sun, you get that vitamin D in, and you train on the roof, and it's fine because you're in. And again, that's different for everyone, right? So you might have 10 minutes of training, 15 minutes of training. For me, every day is different, but I'll get at least an hour in. And then, of course, if you meditate, I mean, that's what the day looks like for me. Meditation keeps you grounded, even if it's 10, 15 minutes. And then you get mind, body, soul, and you get your worship, and you get your studies. And alhamdulillah, as long as you have a structure, I don't even think about it as productivity. That's the funny thing. Even if I wasn't producing anything, I would still be doing it.
Yeah.
Because it makes me happy, and it makes me feel like I'm doing something, even if you're not seeing anything. Of course, when you see it, you see the benefits, then alhamdulillah, you feel encouraged even
Because
more.
I know sports quite important for you, like physical exercise. Because you at one point, I don't know where you were, but I remember seeing on social media you were using rocks that you had found, heavy items, because you had no gym and you had no dumbbells, so using rocks and stuff like that to keep
Yeah,
yourself busy.
I was in China. Yeah, I was in a Buddhist monastery in China, so we had a little Buddhist gym
Yeah,
with the rocks, and they started joining in. It's
yeah.
the same thing here. If you see me here, you'd laugh. I'm pretty creative over here. I'm thinking of using the ironing board as a little bench press on a ladder.
It's because
That's my next
you
project.
don't
That's
bend
my
it.
next
You don't
project.
bend it. Your missus is gonna be upset. Um, so one of the projects you're working on now
Yeah,
is a project I think you've been working on a few years. Is to kind of get to the level where I think you're quite familiar with the Holy Prophet's biography, so that you can
yeah,
then express it to other people and express it with confidence
yes,
and bring. I think from when I discussed this with you, bringing new kind of perspective and knowledge about his life that isn't the usual, snippets that we know. It's new stuff that we go, oh wow, I didn't know, this was the case or this was the actual reality. And I think you're incorporating that into this month of Ramadan programs for this summertime. Can you talk to us a little bit
yes,
about
yes.
that?
Sure, yes. Well, when I first came to Hausa, of course, when you come to Hausa, a big part of the Hausa experience is your teachers. And you'll find that certain teachers, you can vibe with them a lot more than others. And if that happens with you, then you will vibe with the subjects a lot more too. So I met this very blessed man named Sheikh Qadim Yassin. He's about a 65-year-old. He was a 65-year-old man at the time, and he was just, he astounded me with his research and history, and I loved the subject and how he taught it, and he made me see the Prophet in a way in which I had never seen before, and I really wanted to give that out as well. So I dedicated a lot of my own time to studying history with him, because in Hausa, certain subjects are not given as much priority as others. So that subject was a priority that I had given a subject that I had given a lot of priority to. And because of that, I feel I spent so much time discussing the different parts of his life that at one point, a teacher like him can make you feel like you live in the Arabian Peninsula 1,400 years ago. So sometimes you're sitting there and, you feel like Abu Sufyan's going to pop right up in front of you in a moment. And the way that he explains everything and the way that he brings it to life. So, alhamdulillah,
had he written something himself, like a biography?
Oh yeah, he's got the biography of the Prophet and the biography of Imam Ali and the biography of the Imams. And
mashallah, okay.
See, subhanallah, I think actually I must have got that thing from him, because he's up to right now Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and he has Alzheimer's. He has afwan, not Alzheimer's. No, he has the what do you call it?
Dementia?
Parkinson's. Parkinson's. He has Parkinson's disease, right? And he's so tired all the time. And whenever I tell him, Sheikh, you need to rest, he says, like, this is what gives me life anyway. And I need to get as much done now before I die. He always says that. So I look at him and I'm like, yeah, he has a lot to give. So he wants to do that. And the way in which he does that, if people knew, like some of these scholars, because of the situations, for example, the Sheikh, he's always with his wife, right? This is just in brackets. His wife at that time, she was the one who would type the books for him. So because his hands would shake a lot, so he would sit down and he would speak and she would type for him, and then that would be the book there. So even the book has so much barakah in it and love from them both, and the support they have for each other.
So even though now that he has that situation, he's still writing and he's still active.
Yeah. He's still every time I see him, he's got a new book. So I mean, this is one of the difficulties of Corona, because of Corona, I can't see him, and that hurts me so much. But inshallah, hopefully it calms down and so I can see him again. So in any case, he brought a lot of love into my heart for this subject, and through it, a lot of love for Rasulullah, Habibullah, the beloved of God, to the point where you feel like when you study history in that way, you begin to almost know these people as if you lived there. And I wanted to express that to others, especially in the community where we don't know hardly anything, unfortunately, about the Prophet's life. And if we do, they are not from our sources. And there may be many, many distortions in the way that we think about the Prophet. And that's why so many people gravitate to Imam Ali alayhi salam as if he's any greater than Rasulullah, which is a ridiculous idea, because whatever Imam Ali is, he took it from Rasulullah. So it's been a passion of mine to bring this love into people's hearts and pass on what was passed on to me. And I have been teaching about the Prophet Muhammad's life in many places, sometimes more detailed. If you're in a course, I can go into a lot more detail, and we can really break down different narrations and different conflicting reports.
You have done courses, haven't you, around the world for over
the thing with the Prophet's life, in every incident, there's like 2 or 3 at least conflicting reports, and you're like, well, how do I make sense of anything?
Okay.
So it's really healthy to take a course and understand how to make sense of Islamic history, especially because so much can change.
Even within the Shia kind of denomination of Islam, there are conflicting stories, right? There'll be one scholar who put multiple conflicting stories and say
it's not even a Shia thing, It's not even, when it comes to history, it's not even Shia Sunni with history, because you use a lot of Sunni sources. And when I said our sources, perhaps I should say our narrative, because narrative changes, not the sources. The sources are the same.
Yeah.
Because Shia historians use Al-Tabari and everything else. You use everything that you can get.
Sure.
In any case, this series that I'm working on for Shahr Ramadan, we did it in a way in which it was just 10 lectures, in a way that was entertaining, and hopefully, the way I feel about it is that it provides that chronology of events.
So what happened to you?
Electricity cut off.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, it just cuts off, man. This is Lebanon. See, this is
That's all right.
the bright sides.
It's okay. We'll cut that bit out. So you were telling me about the
Yeah.
series of the Holy Prophet for month of Ramadan.
Okay. Yes. So the way I was thinking of it, I wanted to make it in a way in which it would be long lasting. So I hadn't made a proper series online for it. It's only been through courses. But now I was just thinking, especially the chronology of it. It's very important to know the chronology of the events of the life of the Prophet so you know when what happened. And this actually sorts out a lot of confusion for things that you might hear or issues that might bring about some doubts in your heart or things that don't make sense to you. And to make it in a way that's very entertaining. So we made two different versions. We made like a cinematic type of version with different like movie scenes and music to entertain people when they're watching it. So hopefully like schools and Islamic schools, children can look forward to every Friday. That's just like my little imagination. Like,
Because
oh, we're gonna
you've been
watch.
very active with media as a platform and a form of doing
Yeah,
discussing religion, discussing
yeah.
topics of Islamic context.
I mean, I was a journalist before Hausa, so yeah,
Yeah,
I loved media, but I think I'm still stuck in 2010.
yeah,
That's my issue. Right now, there's a lot of new technology that I don't know about. That's your place, you teach me,
yeah.
you know. But yeah, alhamdulillah. So I'm hoping that people like it. And then there's the normal version that they'll just air on TV and YouTube and everything. And then hopefully people can learn about Rasulullah in their own time. And I feel if you dedicate some time to learn about Prophet Muhammad, your Islam will just transform because it will become something out of love. And that's why he was named Habibullah, the beloved of God, because really he brings about love. He just emanates love. The more you get to know about him and you feel a personal connection with him, then when you're praying and you say Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and you feel that you are actually sending your salutations upon the Prophet, then it's a different type of religious experience than just doing a ritual for the sake of it being an obligation.
So there is this. I mean, you yourself, you studied and so as, and you've seen there is this Orientalist perspective of Islam and specifically of the Holy Prophet. So things that, for example, the way you've just described this individual, this personality, is from a place of love, respect, where he brings positive energy to you. Now, when the Orientalists, so when I say Orientalists, I'm talking about scholars over the last 100 to 150 years who've seen the East, who've seen Islam and Arab people and their cultures and their religions. The way they would describe the Holy Prophet would be very different to the way you've described him, right? They would describe him as an individual. He came along, he had some ideas, he tried to, if they're going to be positive about him, reform the society that he was from. If they're not positive about him, they're like Dante from Italy or many of the other famous scholars from Europe. They would say that he was the Antichrist, or he was someone who'd come to remind the Christians of their evil ways so that they go back to God. You know, that kind of representation of him, which
Okay,
persists to today, right? How would
okay.
you try to explain to someone who would have these kind of things that they've read in newspapers and seen on TV? Because the way you've described them is really far off from the way they've seen it. How would you describe to someone from that perspective the
Well,
personality of Prophet
well,
Muhammad?
that's a loaded question. There's a lot to say here. Um, First of all, I would say that no one can actually claim, no one who respects their scholarly credibility can claim that he was just an intellectual man that had some ideas. Because even if you want to look at Orientalists or uh, Western views about Rasulullah, you will see that they put him up there as one of the most influential men of recorded history. And everyone knows this. This is common knowledge. And yeah, influential men might not mean good, but definitely not just a man that's, some person with ideas. So first of all, we know he's one of the most influential men. Okay, so this influential man, what did he do? Well, again, there are certain scholars and institutions that recognize that what he did was something unprecedented in that time and in all times, and I'll get to that in a moment. That's why Harvard, for example, has one of Rasulullah's quotes on a plaque in its law department. And this is just for the West. Of course, in the East, his place is known, and he is the beloved, which is really interesting because in the West right now, there's this boom of the love of Sufism and Rumi, whereas everything that they have gotten it from the tradition of Rasulullah. So if they look at
Yeah,
this Rumi person that they
exactly.
love so much,
Yeah.
and this whole Sufism, and it's so cool, well, that's all Rasulullah. It's all Islam. So I don't know. You can't different. You have to differentiate between them. Why? In any case, if I was to tell someone with a different view, which by the way is a whole different discussion of hermeneutics and how people look at one thing in different ways. And this is a field in philosophy and epistemology that has to be discussed in depth. Yani. I'm not going to get to that in this podcast
Part two
because,
podcast.
yeah, it's maybe one day. But if I was to say that, okay, look, there are facts at the end of the day, regardless of how me and you want to view things, there are some facts that we cannot look away from. And one of those facts is that Rasulullah was oppressed for 13 years after his prophethood in Mecca, and his followers were exiled and killed and crucified, and they had to, go on boats to Ethiopia. The whole this the
Migration.
refugee phenomenon and everything that occurs right now occurred in that time. Rasulullah had to see it happening to his own family, and he saw his closest companions be killed in front of him. All of this, and he didn't have any power to do anything at the time. And then when he does get the power, and this is just a historian's perspective, I'm not saying, let me say this as a non-lover, non-believer. When this man has the power to gain revenge, and he goes back to Mecca 8 years after his migration to Medina, he comes back to Mecca 8 years only because they broke the treaty. So he was not coming to do anything to hurt anyone because he had made a peace treaty. They broke the treaty. He comes back with thousands of followers. He conquers their chief. The chief submits straight away. He goes into Mecca. Hey, what do you think is going to happen right now? You are the people who have literally hurt this man since you can't even remember. And now he has power. If someone came to me and had hurt my mother and father and had hurt my siblings and my friends and killed them, if one of my friends were killed, I'd probably never leave me for the rest of my life. And I might hold a grudge against the murderer for the rest of my life, even if the murderer is in jail, right? What if it was hundreds of my friends and companions? And what if the perpetrator, never received justice? No, actually, they had a lot more to enjoy in their wealth and their life, and they were never taken into account. Finally, now I have the opportunity to get my revenge. What does he do? He lets everyone go. He doesn't hurt a soul. He says, everyone, to the Muslims, march into Mecca with white flags, and then scream out, whoever comes to the flag is safe. Put your weapons away. No one's supposed to get hurt. Whoever goes to the Kaaba is safe. Whoever wants to go to the house of Abu Sufyan is safe. He's also, Rasulullah is very
And Abu
strategic.
Sufyan was the leader of the people who attacked
Yes.
his people, and
That's
his
Rasulullah is so strategic. Abu Sufyan was one of the chiefs of the Quraysh, of the tribe in Mecca. Rasulullah gets him first and tells him, Abu Sufyan, submit so your people won't get hurt. When they see you with me, they'll let go. And Abu Sufyan realizes the situation and he submits. So Rasulullah goes in with him. Of course, if they see their chief working with Rasulullah, they're not going to fight back. Rasulullah would take every precaution, everything he can do to prevent any violence. And at the same time, once he can take them as prisoners, he lets them go. And not only that, in the wars to follow, whatever the Muslims received of wealth, when it came to camels or goats, he gave it straight away to the people of Mecca, only so that he can keep on their good sides so that they don't fall into any other disputes and try to guide them to Islam. That's why when a dispute fell between his older followers and they said, Rasulullah, how come you're giving the wealth to the Quraysh and how come you're giving it to other people where we've been with you from the very beginning? He tells them, I'm giving them from dunya because they still need training. They still need help. But I didn't expect you guys to want dunya. I thought you wanted Rasulullah, so I'm going with you to Medina. And they would cry. So he said, I'm coming with you. I didn't know it. Don't let a small part of dunya take away everything you've done. So he even knew how to talk to different types of people. This person only responds to dunya, so let me speak to him through dunya first until I win him over, and then I can bring him true knowledge and true enlightenment. Whereas these people, I expect them to know more. Unfortunately, he was let down a lot in his life. And this is something else, that when you get to know Rasulullah and you see how he dealt with people with such mercy and love, yet without naivety, whilst being a very strategic political leader, then you realize this person was not just some man in the desert with some ideas.
Because there's a misconception even within Muslims that the Holy Prophet only did what God said to him to do. He didn't act in almost as if he was a robot, and he didn't act from any of his own kind of calculation. And
Yes.
but from a lot of the people that I've spoken to, that they say that the Holy Prophet was the smartest man in the world, in the sense that yes, he didn't act out of his own will when it came to matters that pertain to God, but a lot of the things he had to try and figure out himself what is the best to do. So he
Yes.
wasn't left, he wasn't a robot where he's constantly waiting for some kind of
No,
message to come.
exactly.
He says
A
it,
human
and
being.
then the next issue comes up.
Yeah, he's a human being. He is a human being. He has emotions. He feels. And that's something else that people, when they learn about his life and realize that this young boy, when he was born without a father, and he lived with the nomads in the desert for his first 4 years. He loses his mother at 6 years old, right in front of him. And he loses his grandfather, who had taken care of him at 8 years old. And at 8 years old, he has gone through so much loss and so much pain. And he is orphaned from so very young, yet he is such a special young boy that everyone in the town had realized his special qualities, that even when the famous story of when Abu Talib, his uncle, who later on takes care of him and takes him to Syria on his first trip, Buhaira, the monk, the Christian monk, who sees him and realizes that this is not any young boy, this is a special young boy. When you see that his empathy had grown through experience, So he was the manifestation, the greatest manifestation of God's names, but not something that happened just directly in that way. He grew into it through his experience. Yet, of course, he was a prophet since birth, but he grew into his empathy, into his knowledge. That's why Imam Ali alayhi salam, we have narrations, the Imam tells us that there was an angel that would be with Rasulullah always as a child, that would teach him and talk to him and speak to him with akhlaq and teach him how to behave. Rasulullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give him that straight away. But it's different when you learn through experience. So Rasulullah, even from the angels, when he would learn from them, it would be something that would be growing through experience. And of course, we can go into so many different topics, philosophy-wise, about Rasulullah and who he is in the world before this world, and can the angel actually teach him, and his maqam is higher than the angels. That, all of that aside, I'm just speaking in a very brief and basic way right now for the podcast. When you learn more about his life and you empathize with him and his feelings, then your love grows. The more knowledge you have of him, the love grows.
Yeah, so for sure, the Holy Prophet's life, even if you want to study it as not necessarily as a Muslim or religious kind of perspective, there's a lot of lessons there, and there's like you said, we can go into so much more details that we can pick things out, even as a non-Muslim, to learn from. However, I want to go to the next topic. So you do a lot of stuff to do with the kind of spiritual perspective of religion, and how it benefits even the youth. I know you work with the youth a lot because they're at tender age. They're in a society where there's a lot of bombardment of media, messaging and coding, and kind of almost brainwashing that goes on. And you try to help them with the spiritual access, because I believe that one of the strongest ways of influencing someone is through emotion and spirituality, as opposed to just doctrine and what is right and what is wrong, because that sometimes is not enough. Tell me why you think that media, and we can maybe go on to the documentary that you're working on, why you think media and the kind of platforms of media like the ones we have now, which we didn't have, like I would say 15 years ago when I was younger, YouTube, Facebook and stuff like that, why is that important to be utilized to spread the spirituality within almost all religions, but specifically Islam?
I mean, alhamdulillah, for us, Islam has been always in the field of propagation, We have the member of Rasulullah. Rasulullah would sit on his member. He would sit on Fridays and other days and give sermons and lectures, propagating the religion. Now, the methods of propagation have changed drastically since then. We still have those congregations which are so important, and they provide a certain feeling and certain effects which are in our reports about the mu'mineen being together, certain effects that, that human closeness that it can't be replicated through media. But I think media can be used in very positive ways. Like right now, look where you are and where I am, thousands of miles apart, and we're sitting here discussing, Rasulullah and Islam and everything else. And hopefully, if we have a few viewers watching this, then if they benefit from anything, how fantastic would that be? So these methods of propagation, whether they be writing or through films, through different lectures that are put online, everything, every ideology is being propagated through these means. So Islam always has to keep up, and we always have to find new ways. We have to bring in new ways in order to bring this knowledge of Islam to the people so that they may practice their religion. The first ever group of people who were practicing Islam in Medina, when they came to the Prophet Muhammad, there was about 11 of them. Prophet Muhammad sent a man named Mus'ab with them. He sent him back to Medina to stay with them and live with them and teach them the ahkam, teach them how to pray, teach them the principles of the religion. Rasulullah always had his own messengers. So when it comes to right now, I'd say people like me and whoever else is studying Islam and using these means, it's the same. I always view it as perhaps I can be one of the messengers of the messenger of Allah, and then he tells you go to this community. And if that means that it doesn't have to be physically, then subhanAllah, it's one of the miracles of the age, where you can speak to people, and perhaps that's what it means. I mean, we can't know for sure, but when Imam Mahdi Sharif returns and he can speak to everyone, in one go, and maybe technology has something to do with that. I mean, now things are becoming a lot clearer when it comes to those kinds of issues. So of course, media is imperative. We have to bring in all of our different skills and abilities together. And alhamdulillah, as I said, as Shia, usually we are quite organized in doing that. And I hope that continues more so in the West.
And if we can lead on to a documentary that you've currently been working on for a number of years, and you've traveled, I think, multiple countries for it. You've interviewed some big heavyweights, try to gauge their perspective on this issue.
Yeah.
Can you just introduce that documentary and what it means to you, because you've been working on it for quite a long time?
I mean, that's one of the projects, Reza, that I think that I won't complete before I die.
I'm going to make sure you do.
Yeah, because you're the one helping me with it. So, alhamdulillah, that one's taking a long time because we want to make sure we get it 100% right. So we're not rushing with it. Alhamdulillah, every year we learn more and we add more into it. Even though in the end it will only be probably an hour documentary, but an hour-long documentary. But to make sure that what's in it is the content that the people need. So In Search of the Sacred was an idea that I had a few years ago when I was in London, and the first person I came to with that idea was my dear friend, if you've heard of him, Reza John Vedadi, RJV. And of course, as this loyal companion of mine, he straight away accepted to be the person to help me out, and he has. So alhamdulillah, even when I had a crazy idea, yo Reza, I'm going to China and I'm going to live in a monastery and I'm going to learn about their religion, but I need someone there to film it. No doubts, no questions. Straight away, he comes and he is the second bearded man in the Chinese town. Alhamdulillah.
The second monotheist.
The monotheist group, yeah. It was really wonderful being there. So that was one of the experiences of being part of that project. We have interviewed different personalities, very different personalities from different cultures, sometimes even clashing, to show that there is a common ground of this. Mainly what I want to focus on is our fitrah, our innate nature, and its relationship with the sacred world, that it's always been there and we all want the same thing and we're all trying to go towards that, and that spirituality is going to be found in its roots in religion. there may be people that go towards spirituality with no religion, not knowing, or even knowing and ignoring, or not even minding that the roots of this practice or whatever it is that they're doing comes from a sacred religion that has a certain code of conduct and ethics and everything else. It's a documentary against the world of modernity and materialism, and not being sucked up into the modern world at the expense of our souls, but rather to realize. And at the same time, for Muslims, personally, me as a Muslim, it's for all types of people, but me as a Muslim, I wanted to show my Muslim brothers and sisters that we have a place at the table, at the mainstream, where we can speak to different people, and Islam can hold its own. Rather, it can even impress those who maybe had not heard about it in that way, like Jordan Peterson or like Russell Brand. Of course, Sayyid Hussain Nasr is a Muslim, one of the greatest academics of Islam in the West, if not the greatest. And it was one of his works that, well, a work written about him that inspired the title of the project, In Search of the Sacred. So alhamdulillah, it's been a great experience, meeting different people and living in different parts of the world and studying different religions, in order to show that there's a common ground we can all live by, moving away from the modern material world and working on our souls, working on ourselves, this self that we don't perhaps see, that which is beyond the material and the physical, that people say, I don't believe in because I can't see it, or I can't touch it and I can't feel it. Well, we go to show that all these different types of people feel the same thing when it comes to this metaphysical, immaterial world, and we are trying to provide a way in which we connect with that.
So there was some issue with, I obviously have a lot of followers who might have misunderstood your experience while you were in Taiwan, in the Buddhist monastery, thinking that you're there and you're promoting the Buddhist kind of ideologies or religion, even though you're a Muslim seminary, you're studying in Hosea and you have a lot of youth who follow you. Yes. Can you just briefly, you don't have to go into too much detail, explain, were you influenced by the Buddhist teachings, or were you understanding it to give more depth to your own religious Muslim identity? What was it that you were gaining from that experience?
Well, I have a master's degree in religions and global politics, so religious studies and comparative religion is one of my passions. I believe that through studying, of course, my field is Islam mainly, but through studying the Abrahamic faiths, I've done Christianity more so than Judaism, as well as when it comes to Hinduism and Buddhism and everything else, which I studied in my master's degree, and even when I went to the monastery. You were there, you saw we studied every day in the seminars to study the religion. I'd recommend for anyone who thinks, who sees these things straight away and thinks about it being a promotion of a different religion, to study a book, or read at least the book by Reza Shah Kazmi, Common Ground Between Islam and Buddhism, for example. There is a huge difference between learning about religion after you have learned and dissected your own, and that is the main thing that I want to say here. I'm not telling anyone to go and study a different religion before they study their own. That makes no sense. You want to, and that's with philosophy as well. I would say study Islamic philosophy before studying any other type of philosophy. For those who like philosophy out there, of course, there are many Muslims that are against philosophy too, and that's a different discussion. But you're never going to please anyone, are you? So to read that book, to understand more of what I was trying to accomplish, I'm trying to find a common ground between all these different people who follow a code of conduct, to stand together in solidarity against the idea of there being no code of conduct and no ethics. So why would I want to make it something about it's Muslims against the world when it isn't? It's people who want the meaning, the true meaning behind it, the sacred meaning against the modern world. And then from there, we can discuss our creeds and our differences. We're obviously different, but we can respect each other and we can coexist, especially as someone coming from London. I mean, I'm not living in Basra. We're here, we're all different people in London. My closest
There's nothing wrong with Basra, right? My wife's from Basra.
God bless your wife.
And my grandma's from Basra.
God bless Abu Jasim. God bless you all. There's nothing wrong with Basra, but I'm saying in Basra usually.
Shout out to Basrawis.
Shout out to Basra, my people. But I'm saying, it's not all Muslims. Like, I can say the same thing. I'm not living here. I didn't say Lebanon, because in Lebanon it's like they're
Yeah,
all
you have a
different as
mixture
well.
of, yeah.
Yeah, but in Iraq or Iran, usually it's mainly Muslims. But when you're in London, in a multicultural society, and all my friends, my friends are all from, my friends, they're all very different people, and even some of them, subhanallah, became Muslims.
Mm.
So we know about, Emmanuel and these close friends of ours that were, I was raised with them and they became Muslims. So subhanallah, someone can say, why were you being friends or whatever else, or like. Khair, inshallah, let me not go too much into that. Shout out to Emmanuel as well.
To the
Anyway,
Tottenham crew.
to the Tottenham crew. I miss my friends, man. God bless you
Um,
all. I hope you're all well.
yeah, we pray for all of them in the world, inshallah, all over the world. So this idea of spirituality being such a significant kind of a glue or of bringing people together, as opposed to with differences, everybody
Mm.
respecting the differences, that's fine. How would you think that this pandemic has kind of put a spotlight on a lot of issues? We're going to concentrate on the West, okay? Because we're predominantly living in the West. We're experiencing the news and the current affairs of the West.
That's you,
The,
man.
the
Yeah.
the spotlight that is on, for example, America or UK, where people are rushing out to buy toilet paper, or in America they're rushing out to buy weapons, and yet the healthcare system is falling apart. The richest country in the world can't provide healthcare system for its own people. There's a big, massive, we discussed leadership earlier, that the Lebanese Shias are showing leadership in south of Lebanon, so things are getting done to whatever degree that they can. Obviously, there's a lot of restrictions because of their economy and the access to whatever they have and funding and so forth. But in America, where there is no such issue of sanctions, there is no such issue of lack of money, because they just gave $2-3 trillion to the rich
Yeah.
businesses in America. There's a lack of leadership. Okay, we're not going to mention names, but we know who we're talking about. There's a lack of leadership in the West. Okay, there's all of these lacks of materialistic kind of things. Okay, in what way do you think this project that you're working on, or the spirituality work that you've been doing with the youth for the past 5-6 years, how do you think it kind of almost validates what you've been saying?
I mean, first of all, I'd like to say that spirituality, when we say spirituality, I'm focusing more on ruhaniya, yani in Arabic, rather than the really aloof word of spirituality in English, which doesn't really have a meaning, is very general. But that's why I mentioned it being rooted in religion. And that's something that we discussed in the documentary anyway, for those interested. As for this focus on the self and ruhaniya and muraqabah and bettering the self, and it being the main priority of my focus, when I want to propagate religion, I think because the head of all wrongs, as the Prophet says, is the love of this world. And the love of this world is this accumulation of wealth. And there is no ideology that promotes this accumulation of wealth more than capitalism and this individualism that we're raised with, this liberalism where, you make yourself and you bring yourself up, and it's all about what you have and what you're wearing and the cars you have, the cars you drive and the houses you have. And we're so attached to these things. And we all grow up from when we're kids in the Western world with the American dream of having that big house and the swimming pool in the house and the car. And, this is a problem, because it doesn't mean if you're spiritual, you can't live with nice things or experience luxury. You can. We are not supposed to be attached to anything. And this attachment is what causes us our problems a lot in this epidemic, this what's happening right now. Unfortunately, because we are so used to this luxury, people have fallen into panic buying and hoarding and everything else that's occurred. Whereas in our narrations, we have the imams telling us to move away from that. The idea of capitalism, the idea of 1% of the world having as much wealth as pretty much the rest of the world, when all of these things have been the way that they are. And interestingly enough, it's always a lot of the poorer people. They're the ones who are sustaining the wealth of these richer people in any case. So even though we're against it and everything, we still consume their products. So we are also aiding this system. This is the collapse of capitalism. it shows the weaknesses of it. And it's not me here. I'm not promoting communism or socialism or anything else. Or even maybe there are different forms of capitalism that would do a lot better. But it's not capitalism on its own as an economic issue. It's also the love of the material world, the spiritual movement, if you want, away from God. We live in a godless world. There is no God in many people's lives. There is no belief in akhirah. So you believe that whatever I can have now is everything I have. So let me gather everything right now because I'm not going to give it up. What am I going to benefit after I die? Whereas a mu'min would say that, well, whatever I give now, I receive afterwards tenfold. So he gives away what he gives away and he waits for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in store for him. So I think that someone who is spiritually centered, they can get by on very little. And these outer issues wouldn't necessarily affect them as much. Of course, we're all people, but I think when you are content with much less, then you can get by when all of this is happening around you. You can remain centered and remain grounded and not have to experience a lot of the unfortunate trouble and anxiety that most of the world is experiencing right now.
Do you think that, because you mentioned mu'min and kind of a believer, are you only referring to Muslims, or can we say that if you have Christians who devout, who genuinely believe in what they believe, would they benefit spiritually as well?
At least a believer in the afterlife, I believe, is one of the main pillars of any belief in the metaphysical world, because when you believe in the afterlife and you believe in eternity, you believe that it's not all ending here. And so this contentment with death being merely a passing on to a different world begins to rest within your heart. And then you can give more of your dunya self because you know you're going to receive a lot more of your akhirah self. So when I say mu'min, it can be applied to Islam, yes, but it can also be applied to anyone who would believe in the afterlife, whoever they are, or anyone, even if someone was to believe in the metaphysical, if you want, realities and how they would affect their soul and their spirit, because they might also feel the benefit in dunya. They might feel that when I share, I feel the benefit. My heart feels like more content. I don't feel that guilt that I would feel before. There are certain people like that. But I think that, honestly, in all honesty, Reza, I think, unfortunately, many of us we talk a lot, and we are all for all these, campaigns to help others. But as soon as the pandemic starts knocking at our own doorstep, we throw all those campaigns in the bin. And this is when it really counts. This is when it really, really counts. And it might sound funny to you, but I remember last year when there was a small girl in the village who needed a kidney. And I don't know who this girl is, but my teacher, he gathered us in the class and he told us that he was going to go get tested to see if he could donate his kidney. And he asked if we wanted to join him. And not one person in the class said no. And I don't know who this little girl is. So I just saw her on the video. She broke my heart. All the brothers in my class, my teacher, and we all committed. Alhamdulillah, we found a kidney for her and we didn't have to donate our own kidneys. But what I'm trying to say is it really counts when someone knocks at your own doorstep. That's when all these campaigns count. Not when we're talking and posting pictures on our Facebooks all the time. This is when it counts. So I think this pandemic is an opportunity for you to know your place truly with God, know your place with your own self, and of course they intertwine because he who knows himself knows his Lord. And inshallah, at the end of this, for those of us, we can come out of this in a better state than how we went into it, especially as we experience death all around us, because all of us either going to lose someone we love or know someone who lost someone they love. And that reaction to death, hopefully, if done in the correct way, can soften one's heart and allow him to work towards the truth, which is the afterlife, and it's not this physical life and this physical body.
Finally, is that what you meant when you were discussing in your previous lectures? I believe you said that you don't have to be Allama Tabatabai to see things. You don't have to be Sheikh Behjat to see things. Is that what you mean, in the sense that some people say you have to get to such a highest level of understanding before you can see the realities. For example, Sheikh Behjad, in a video I saw literally 2 days ago, he's a sheikh from Iran who's very learned and is very respected spiritually, and they said to him, do you have to do special kind of prayer, salat, to kind of elevate you spiritually? He goes, no. One of the main things that I've been taught, which I teach you, is to do your prayer on time. And they're like, okay, is that like this prayer where you actually understand every single aspect of the prayer? He goes, no, just do the prayer on time, even if you're making mistakes. As you do it on time and you continuously do it on time, you start to improve, you start to develop, you start to understand. So when you say you don't have to be certain level of these scholars, is that what you're referring to?
You reminded me, Sheikh Bajaz's teacher, Sayyid Ali al-Qadi, he said that to reach Allah truly, you have to leave the haram and do your wajib, do your obligations, and leave what's forbidden. Because anyone who claims, spiritual and whatever else, before the code of conduct and the ethics is all just talking. The ethics, the code of conduct is the first step. So he says, leave the haram. Second step is to be sincere for God truly, and not want anything from anyone except Allah. And thirdly is to pray on time with the presence of the heart. Sheikh Bajad says, I have a different opinion of his teacher. He says, I say 3 steps. You do your wajib and you leave the haram. You're sincere. So far it's the same. Then he says, and pray on time. He doesn't say with the presence of the heart. That's his difference. So he says, without presence of the heart, if you do these things, then he says you will reach reality. And if you don't, then curse me.
Yeah.
He says, curse me if you don't. So alhamdulillah, the way is set out for us right there. I'm no one to be speaking about these personalities or Allama, Tabatabai, or Sheikh Bahjat, may Allah bless their souls, or to even provide an opinion next to their opinion. What I will say is, based on the quotation that you just offered us, what I meant there was mainly in context of visions, because I was explaining meditation and dhikr and sitting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and contemplation. And yes, what I was trying to say right there was not in terms of the station of the person, because a person's station is not reflected in the visions that they receive or the realities that settle into their heart. Someone might not be of a great station and still receive a vision out of mercy of God, out of a warning, it can even be a sinner, So I was explaining that don't think that you have to be, a 60, 70-year-old spiritual master in order for God to show you a sign or a reality. You need to contemplate, though. That's what you have to do. Whoever you are, if you do contemplate your human faculties in that moment of that prayer, because you're trying to connect to the divine, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can show you something there. And that's a reality. It doesn't mean that you have reached that station or that you are someone who sees the realities as they are, but it means that you saw something real and that it's possible for you to do this if you were to practice something like meditation and dhikr properly, where after your prayer you're not just saying subhanallah, but you're actually in that as if it's a machine gun, but you're there and you're actually saying subhanallah, and you're thinking of the universe and you're thinking of your creator and you're thinking of his power. So anyone can see, inshallah, what Allah wants to show them. But yeah, if we follow their advice, and you know what, those 3 steps, they're not easy, eh? They're not easy. They're not easy. But we should try.
Yeah. Well, it's a good time now, isn't it? A lot of people at home, so they have a lot of time for praying and contemplation.
Especially the end of Sha'ban and the beginning of Shahr Ramadan.
Yeah. So this Shahr Ramadan is going to be very different, isn't it? You can't go to the mosque. You can't go out.
If there was a spiritual master right now writing the script of the world, I wouldn't be surprised, because this is what they love. This seclusion, to sit down with God. And the 40 days and 40 nights of Jesus, or the 40 days of Moses. That's why a lot of people are asking me right now, what can I do? And I say, look, you've got 10 days till Shahr Ramadan. Start your 40 days and 40 nights right now. Choose one thing and stick to that. Whether it's memorizing 7 ayat of the Quran a day, half a page, memorizing, let's say. Something you haven't done, something challenging, memorizing Quran. That's not something we usually do, Try to memorize half a page of Quran a day for 40 days. Or let's say Salatul Layl, something challenging, 40 days. or the Ziyarat Ashura, 40 days, or try to choose that action, that act of worship, 40 days, and stick to it as much as you can, and see what happens by Eid.
Well, it's been amazing talking to you. I could go on for hours. I know it's late there, so I just wanted to
Yeah.
wrap it up. I said amazing conversation. Inshallah, we'll do a part 2 for this
God bless.
podcast.
God
I
bless.
really pray. All of us pray for you and all the people studying in the Jose there. I know it's hard without the pandemic, but the pandemic's even harder now. There's so many more barriers and restrictions and things happening. I mean, here at least we have some kind of infrastructure that we can rely on. So may God protect you and assist you and your family and your wife and
Thank you, Habibi.
all the
God
scholars
bless
that you
you
have,
too.
especially the ones that you said they're finding it
Yes.
hard. Please pray for us while you're there as well. Keep us in your
You're
du'as.
always in my prayer, Reza, and everyone else, and God bless you. And I hope this podcast shoots up in popularity, and everyone sees this lovely face that I can't get enough from for the last decade.
So we'd like to look forward to your. Hopefully, where would we go to find out when the videos will be released? Do you have a
So on
Facebook
my
page, right?
yeah, on my
Okay.
Facebook, Hussain Makke, my Instagram,
Okay.
hmakke91, and it's pretty obvious. Everyone can just check out the content.
Great. So we look forward to that for this Sahar Ramadan, and all the best to you, mate. Really keep us
All the best
keep
to
us in
you,
your du'as.
mate. You too, mate. Take care.